rather you didn't disclose, even though you saw it in public. But if you can prove that it has artistic value, or this value, or that value, I don't think courts should make any decisions as to what is a debate of public interest, or what is artistic merit, or that. That's not what you can't make a world in which you have to justify your speech. I mean, we're here in Greece, where people like to talk and make noise. And you want to tell people that you can't talk because someone else would rather you didn't talk. Well, that's too bad. That's my only point, okay? Thank you. I appreciate your courtesy in listening to me.
Thank you. If everybody could keep their comments relatively brief, because we've had a very long day, and I know that I'm not the only person who's getting not tired of the conversation, but lacking the physical ability to stay with it. Sir.
Now that everything has been said and done in this magnificent setting, I think leaving this amphitheater, it's important to understand that we have an ethical duty not to moralize about these subjects. I think the last thing we need is some kind of self-appointed elite that patronizes people. I think that if we go out there and try to outcompete with the sentiments that are being stoked by a very powerful alliance of vested interests, we're going to lose out. We are lucky enough to be in the company of great scientists. We need to shine the light of reason upon the twin crises facing our species, the global financial economic crisis and the global ecological catastrophe which is looming. We have to understand that it's not either one or the other. The two are part of the same threat to humanity. They are both the result of asymmetrical exercise of power, extractive power, over people, over land, over resources. And that if in effect what we are saying, I agree entirely that we will need to be modest in the way that we are articulating our proposals. These are not revolutionary times. We're not going to change the world. We're not going to, we should never get indulged in the discussion about whether we should have capitalism or socialism or whatever. What we need now is a series of modest, common sense proposals, which, for instance, say one, and I'll finish here, about the debt crisis, about the economic crisis. In 2008, the financial world changed. Since then, we are refusing to come rationally to terms with the fact that all we're doing is we're kicking the ball around from the private sector to the public sector, then back to the banks and so on and so forth. Similarly with the environment, similarly with all the problems facing humanity, we need a rational bargain. We need to have all interests represented around the table, both at the regional level, at the EU level, and also globally, and say, guys, you cannot ask us Greeks to borrow at 5% from the European Union in order to pay banks at 10% who are borrowing at 0% when it is quite clear that nobody has any confidence left in this system. Similarly, a similar story can be said about the environment. What we need is to discuss rationally ways of tackling the causes and not the effects of these twin towers.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make 2 points. Can I have my slide, please? The first is to repeat what I said earlier, that I still think is the elephant in the room which people don't recognize. The primary problem is there are too many humans, and without controlling population at a sustainable level, all other activities will actually only slow things down very slightly. The second thing, sorry, can I have the slide, please? Which I'd like to make, which I've learned at this meeting, and the point I would like to make to you relates to the solutions, a number of which have been made, and to point out to you that almost all activities are subject to R.K. Merton's famous American sociologist law of unintended consequences, which is most beautifully illustrated in this cartoon. I hope the Greeks also know the fairy story of the princess who kissed a frog He turned into a prince, and here is the result. He fell into a pond and drowned, and she says it seems such a pity because as a frog he was a really terrific swimmer. And everybody who suggests solutions must bear in mind the law of unintended consequences, and solutions need trialing and they need outcome measures. The fact that they sound good at the time is not enough. Much.
Thank you, Peter. That is almost the note on which we should end, I imagine. Are there other points that people wish to make? May I? Nicholas.
It occurs to me that the people in this room have titles and come from institutions which have, rightfully or wrongfully, earned some respect in the press and by the establishment. What if three of us, on any one of the things we've talked about, were to get together and write an op-ed piece for the Times, for the Financial Times, for The Economist, for the Washington Post, and we did it systematically. I mean, we have different expertise, we have different focus, World Court, whatever it is. But what if we began a systematic inundation of the presses and send them to more than one? I know you're not supposed to send an op-ed to more than one institution. Send it to 5, send it to 7, and do this over a period of, let's say, a month. So that ideas that were out there, because these pieces, when you're lucky enough to get them chosen, actually do have tremendous impact. People read that half page in the Financial Times. You could have very good leveraged effect by doing that. Now, somebody has to orchestrate the topics and where it goes, but I'm suggesting, now, if this sounds like the Chamber of Commerce of the United States in terms of what they do, that's exactly what they do. Are we going to be any less effective because we happen not to be united by greed?
That's right.
I think that's
a
an
very good
excellent
idea. And Manchester is the centre of the world, so we should ask Manchester to coordinate it.
It's probably both. It's a very good suggestion. I think there is one sort of note of caution, not about the idea, but op-ed pieces are necessarily pieces by their authors. So they can't really be on behalf of this grouping or this conference. I think it's an excellent idea, and the more people who, there are many people in this room capable of writing effective pieces of that sort, and I think we should all encourage those people to do so. And it would be good for somebody, as it were, to keep a record of these. I'm not sure that it needs coordination, but it certainly needs, it would be very nice if people who did feel inspired to write op-ed pieces would notify perhaps the Eugenides Foundation and our institute of the fact and send copies so we can actually start to build a record of outcomes. And there may be other outcomes from this meeting as well. I think that would be a splendid thing. But I don't think it can be done in a way that people would purport to speak for this grouping as a whole, because we have... That could certainly be sent. That could certainly be sent.
Absolutely.
I think that would be... I'm sure I've met wonderful people here who I didn't know before. And I think most of us, unless anybody has objections, most of us would appreciate receiving a mailing list of the attendees. I certainly would. And unless anybody, if anybody doesn't want to be on that list, they can notify us. But on the assumption that most people would, I would certainly very much appreciate that myself. So that's a very good suggestion. Any other points for now? We don't have to cover everything now. Once we have the mailing list, we can communicate with each other jointly or severally. But I would like suggestions sent to us at the Institute in Manchester, and I think the address is on the paper and the program, and probably also to the foundation here. of any suggestions for action points other than the ones we've just had. I think rather than go, there's still about 50 people in this room, and to hear from all of us individually would take us another hour and a half, I imagine. So may I suggest that further suggestions for action points or other outcomes be sent to the two hosts. Okay, be sent to us in Manchester, and we will not only send them on to the foundation, but circulate them to everybody on the mailing list. And I hope that we will all find occasions to meet one another, not necessarily in this way, but possibly in this wonderful place in the future. I think we should wind up the meeting now. I would like to say again that this has been a wonderful 3 days. I think everybody who has had the privilege of being here has enjoyed it immensely and has found out so many valuable things and made so many new and, I think, enduring and important contacts. So this has been a wonderful meeting. It's been a real privilege to be part of it. Again, we must thank Leonidas and the Eugenides Foundation for their generosity in supporting this meeting, and all his excellent staff for the smooth running and the seamless way that this meeting has gone on, and all of the wonderful things that we've done. So. Most of us attend many meetings, but this has certainly for me been one of the most pleasurable and most valuable that I've attended. So my personal thanks to everybody in this room for making it such a wonderful event. And I know most of us are going to meet this evening for dinner, so that will be a further pleasure for all of us. So I think on that particular note, we ought to close the meeting.
Before we totally close, I'd also like to thank John and Emilios for having that train journey and setting it all up. So I think we should give them a hand.
Thank you.
And there will be the arrangements, I understand, for the speakers' dinner, which is those who have spoken are invited, of course, tonight. There's a bus leaving the hotel at 7:45. So be down there in the lobby for that. We're going to the King George Hotel in St. Agnes Square.
Yes, of course.
Yes, yes.
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Vasily, 10 o'clock.
Good. It's great to see you. We'll be in touch.
Which includes yesterday's.
I think it's nice to have people have to make political decisions.
That's a debate. We'll continue. Peter will be on your side.
You're not going to dinner. You're not going to dinner.
Yeah, but he's not on my side on the privacy thing. The courts will sort it out. To me, that's even more outrageous. And I'm maybe you agree with me.
Anyway, I can't see you this evening, unfortunately, because we've got some people to see. So we'll be in touch. Yeah, definitely. I'll see you tomorrow. Pleasure. Very nice to meet you. No, I don't think so. We've got to have some people to see. What? Okay. Let me. Yeah. Did I give you my card earlier? No. Okay. Have you got a card? Where are you based? Okay. Very good. Okay. Bye.
I just wanna be a great time for you, and I just light up a smile in your blue, and I just wanna be a bright sun in your moon, and fly